Pledge of Allegiance from students at Airport. Steve.
Tonight, we'd like to welcome two students from Airport High School. We have tonight Parker Whip and Sydney Williams. Parker's been doing the invocation, and Sydney be doing Pledge of Allegiance. But Parker is a senior at Airport where he has maintained a 5.2 GPA. He's trying to tell me it's going up after this year. That's high. And is currently number 3 in his class. He is enrolled in AP courses and early college classes. Parker plays on the varsity baseball team as a pitcher and right fielder. He participates in the Beta Club, B27 Club, and the National Honor Society. He is also very active in his youth group at Trinity Baptist Church. After he graduates, Parker plans to attend Winthrop University to pursue a degree in exercise science. He has already signed to play baseball with Winthrop in the spring. Sydney Williamson. Sydney is a senior at Airport where she has maintained a 4.97 GPA and is ranked 8th out of 263. She has been involved in National Beta Club, National Honor Society, B27 Club, and as a varsity cheerleader. She was named captain and MVP of the varsity cheerleading team, leading them to participate in 3 state championships, 3 state appearances. Sydney competes on the All-Star cheerleading team at Silverjacks, and she coaches 2 teams of girls 13 and younger. She is one of the first completers of the culinary arts class and received the highest GPA award within the class. After high school, she plans to attend College of Charleston to major in biology, then to go to dental school at the Medical University of South Carolina to become an orthodontist. Parker, see me?
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we come to you today, and I thank you for all of these board members in front of us, as well as the visitors behind us. Lord, I pray that you would be over this meeting and that you would guide these board members as they go through their decision-making process. For we know that you say that if we put our trust in you, that you will guide our paths. Lord, we want to pray for the safety of everyone here in this room as they're here and as they head home. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Without objection, the consent agenda will stand approved. We move to public participation period. On that, I know we've had one request from the community youth football program to discuss board policy KF as listed in new business under item C. And so we've got a request to address that policy. I think Mr. Pringle and Mr. Reverend Jackson.
Kevin Bailey, member of the board. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. We do want to address, we understand the policy in place, but what we do want to address is how that policy is enforced. You may or may not know that the Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center has an athletic program over there. And currently, that program serves about 300 students. I would venture to say 85 to 90% of those students are Lexington students. If you don't know them, because they're the pre-Ks and kindergarten and the elementary kids. It also offers other opportunities, not only athletics, but academics as well. There's a tutorials program that goes on with that program. So while some kids are practicing, Mr. Hunter has people tutoring other kids on their homework assignments and stuff while they're waiting to practice. And the other part of it is some of those kids that come off the field from practice, then they have an opportunity to go to tutorial sessions, which all those things are going to be, and also the summer camps go along with that, and other initiatives that go along with that. I brought something that is new that's going to start next week and I want you to be aware of some of the program that's going on. This is some STEM programs that are being offered at the Empowerment Center, and all those programs are for students in the service area of Lexington too. So that's one of the new initiatives that has not even started yet. So we're out there in academics as well as athletic participation. Those things will have a positive impact on the district. It's going to decrease your discipline issues because Coach Hudson and his staff has a way of, kind of making those guys do right. It's going to increase your academics because of the things that we're doing here. And, they had to have qualified teachers and their retired teachers working with the kids in the summer program and those kind of things. It's going to increase your attendance, okay? Because the kids are doing well, and of course they're going to want to come to school. They have a program that recognizes kids who are on AV honor roll. And I think I had 173 kids in there this year. I think 121 of them were on the AV honor roll that they prospective schools. So that's going to increase your test scores. And all those things are going to have a positive impact on the district. The issue here is that this is the second year in a row that the athletic program has requested to use your athletic facilities, but your policy says after October 31st that no one can use your field for events. Well, these are Lexington 2 kids, but the thing is that they've been denied that request. I don't know if you realize it, but that program this year made history in the state of South Carolina. That program had a 6 and under football team, 8 and under, 10 and under, and 12 and under. All 4 of those teams won state championships this year. All 4 of those teams were undefeated. The 10 and under team, I think it was the 10 and under, 8 and under. The 10 and under team went to Orlando and won the national championship. And the 8 and under team, I think, finished 3rd, and the 12 and under finished 6th in the nation. So these kids are excelling. I looked in I was here last week, and I watched the video that was showed that, showed the initiatives of Lexington 2 school kids complaining community service and the initiatives that they're involved in. Well, these are Lexington 2 kids too, and the services that they're rendering, it's quite vital to the success of the school district. And we're working with that, and we're hopefully, we'll turn out a better product for you. And then, of course, you can take them to the next level and turn out a better product, and there'll be better people in life. And that's the initiative that we want. We want to create a better people, and we want to create kids that are going to be self-sufficient and that can work and do some living and can create a better life for themselves. I know the policy says that, after October 31st, there's no participation on athletic fields, but there was a game on December 20th. At River Casey State. And I know Mr. Hutto, and I have here, I don't know who signed it off, and I'm so appreciative of some states that have gone back and made cursive writing a part of their curriculum because some of these signatures these days you can't read them. But the principal and the athletic director from Brooklyn Casey signed off that they agreed to host these games. And the principal and the athletic director on the top of this form says per school, Coach Shompney will be the responsible party representing Lexington District 2. They agreed to do that. But these games are going to be held on November the 16th and November the 23rd. Well, I can understand that, the board didn't meet until November 21st, so the 16th game might have not made it through. But I checked and I spoke with someone and said, well, we don't do conference calls on voting. But when I checked with the South Carolina School Board Association and some other board members from different districts, that's not a policy that South Carolina school boards have. You can't conduct a phone conference to approve certain things. And so I know that could have taken place too. But we're asking that the district work with us in providing youth and quality kids, work with us and help provide kids that are academically ready to come to you and serve this district because we are a part of this district. So that's the recommendation. That's what we're here today to ask for you to work with us in trying to serve the children that's going to be coming next to school district 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all coming. Mr. Hinton, do we have anyone that else sign up? Okay. Next on our agenda is report on honors and accomplishments of students and staff.
Yes, Mr. Bingham, we got several. I guess the first one is, we'll embarrass Mr. Key in public, and we won't sing, but we will wish you happy birthday. At the board meeting in your honor, so. We have an outstanding student. We have lots of outstanding students in this district, but we have one that did something that I think is just absolutely beyond what I can imagine. McKenna. Casey Elementary, come on in, so these folks can see. Casey Elementary had this program where before the South Carolina Clemson ball game, they were collecting food and a food drive for the Harvest Hope Food Bank. Now, when I saw the picture in the paper, McKenna's got on a Clemson shirt, and her principal didn't do quite as well in the overall game or in the can collecting, evidently. But McKenna is a fourth grade student, and she decided that she was going to collect these canned goods for Clemson, her favorite thing. And she asked folks to donate, and when folks donated money, she went shopping, and she set a goal of 250 cans, which is a phenomenal goal. But when it came about, McKenna collected 1,510 cans of food for other people. Congratulations. I don't think there's anything we could teach you any more important than taking care of other people. Thank you for what you did. And it looks like you were smarter than your principal in this school. It's School Board Appreciation Month, and I think it's appropriate that we stop just a minute to talk about what that means. Our board is unlike a lot of boards. There's no compensation for being on the school board in Lexington too. And I will tell you that it is no small task, and it's not one of those things where it's like being in some civic organization where you can come if you want to or not participate if you want to. These folks guide this district with the overall idea of every kid doing well, succeeding, and having a better life and promoting this community. And as of late, the last 5 years, this board has led a monumental bond development program whereby we've got new schools, improved schools, and it's still going. I'm appreciative for what they do, and I really, truly think that our whole community will. I'm going to pass to each of the board members. We won't ask them to do this right this moment. But the South Carolina School Boards Association has board member ethical principles form that they put out every year at this time for school boards all over the state of South Carolina to sign. And our board has signed it each and every year and held to that, and this is posted throughout our building. So when we break, I'll ask the board that they will sign that. But I want to congratulate you and thank you, and on behalf of 8,900 kids, I think everybody here couldn't have a bigger heart for kids than the folks we got. So with that said, thank you very much for what you do. We've got several of our board members that have hit major milestones, and it's kind of overwhelming if you think about it. Did anybody? My first question is why? But you know, when you start to think about it, but 3 of our board members have been on the school board here for 20 years. If you stop to think about that, that's a career. And they've met at least once a month, and they've gone through times where the budget was terribly lean, and Lord knows I heard enough about Fundy Cliff here the first 6 months out here to make me glad I didn't live through it. And they've gone through building programs and changes in curriculum, and in 20 years, the way that education has changed has just been phenomenal. But 3 of our board members I'd like to recognize for 20 years of service to this community and this school. The first of which is our chairman, Mr. Bill Bingham. We have a pin from the School Board Association, who's known for 20 years, and a certificate. Mr. Bingham, congratulations to you, sir. And again, maybe you'll tell me why at some point in time, because what you all do is very difficult. Ms. Beth Brown, Mrs. Brown is a glutton for punishment because not only has she served 20 years here, she served at the national level. So it's like, I can't get enough of school board, but congratulations, man. And then Ms. Kessler, Ms. Kessler taught in this district for an entire career, and then turned around and spent another career on this school board. God bless you, Ms. Kessler. Thank you, man.
You see all this right here, I keep covering.
I like to think that I helped a little bit of that come in there, Ms. Kessler. We have another board member that has met an outstanding milestone, and in and of itself is an extremely long time to do what board members do. But Mrs. Wooten, this is her 10th year as a board member, so congratulations, Mrs. Wooten. We appreciate what you all do. Also, I won't take your time, but I also have a pin here from the School Board Association for all of our board members, and we'll pass that out. But thank you very much for what you do. Thank you for being a board member, and those of you that have spent so much time on it. I'm a little bit overwhelmed that you could do that for so long. So thank you very much.
I guess it was something in the water whenever Beth and Cindy and I ran that year that we just decided we wanted to stay for.
Well, you have, and you've done a fine job, and I, for one, am glad to hear. So, thank you, sir.
All right. Next up is unfinished business, and we don't have any of that, so we get to move on to new business. First being presentation of financial and procurement audit results for fiscal year 2019.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James, thank you for all your support and everything that you do for us in the business area. And we are fortunate to have Mr. Andrew Coleman with us tonight, one of the managers of our audit from Green City, and he has a presentation he would like to provide to you. You have a copy of the financial report and a few other additions outside of the report that is at your seat.
Like Mr. Ross said, you guys should have a copy of the audit there. But as I'm sure nobody wants to go through that page by page, what we found is helpful. We put together a little PowerPoint presentation that we'll go through right now. In the audit, there's an opinion. We give an opinion on your financial statements. We always like to take this opportunity just to remind everyone of what the opinion is. In the opinion, it states stuff that the district is responsible for and what we're responsible for. So the first thing we're going to look at here in the opinion, what is the district's responsibility? The district is responsible to maintain effective internal controls. Well, I always like to remind everyone there are limitations on internal controls. We also like to remind everyone that regular risk assessment is important, including assessing the risk of fraud. And again, the financial statements. What is the district responsible for in the financial statements? They're responsible for the accuracy, completeness, propriety of balances, amounts, and disclosures. All right, now flipping over, what is our responsibility? In our opinion, we give you reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. You can see there we have reasonable assurance and materially correct underlined. Why do we say reasonable assurance? We say reasonable assurance because we did not go through and look at every transaction that was done in the district for the entire year. If we had to go in and do that, we would still be back there working on your audit. And your audit would cost 10 times what it does now. So what do? We look at the material transactions, then we look at samples of others. And that's how we give you reasonable assurance that your financial statements are materially correct. I always like to remind everyone, the opinion does not address the financial condition of the district. The only thing the opinion tells you is that the numbers, the amounts that are in here are correct. And again, the purpose of the audit is not to detect fraud. And again, we cannot take responsibility for finding fraud if it existed. The good news, we issued an unmodified opinion. I know unmodified sounds a little strange, but this is the best opinion that you can receive. If you had a modified opinion, we would say everything in these financial statements are good except for X, Y, and Z, but we do not say that. Also in your opinion, we do want to point out we had an emphasis in matter paragraph for the change in accounting principle for the conversion of your food service fund and your daycare activities from enterprise funds to special revenue funds. What does that mean day to day? Absolutely nothing. It just changes a little bit of where they're reported in the financial statements. All right, looking at your general fund, your total fund balance increased 1.1 million to 11.6 million. Also do like I want to point out here, you did transfer approximately 3.2 million into a capital projects fund for future capital needs. If you look at the breakdown of your general fund balance, you had non-spendable fund balance of 207,000 for prepaid and inventory, and the unassigned fund balance, which is what everyone pays attention to, was 11.4 million. If you look at that unassigned fund balance, it is 13.6% of the 2020 budgeted expenditures. We always get asked, where should that fund balance percentage be? Good rule of thumb, the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends a minimum of 16.7% or 2 months. So you can see you're almost to that point. And we always like to remind everyone, the state requires at least 8.3% or 1 month's worth of expenditures. Well, I was like to remind everyone, what are the major reasons to maintain an adequate fund balance? The biggest one for you guys is the first point here. Cash flow through the second half of the calendar year. Again, all of your property taxes come in December and January, so you've got to have an adequate fund balance to keep you through June until December when your property taxes come in again. All right, looking at your general fund revenues, for 2019, there were approximately 80.3 million. You can see the breakdown there. It was 31.4 million from property taxes, 47.3 million from the state government. When you compare that to the prior year, it was a 3.1 million or approximately 4% increase. You can see the main increase is 1.3 increase in state revenues because the base student cost went up from the prior year. And again, when you compare that to what you guys have budgeted, it was 1.8 million or 2% better than your budget. Looking at your expenditures, they were 78.7 million. You can see the breakdown there. Your 46.1 million, or the bulk of your expenditures there were in instruction. You had 32.5 million in support. When you compare that to the prior year, it's 2.2 million, or approximately a 3% increase. And then again, when you compare that to your budget, this is where you always like to be under budget. You were 2.4 million, or 3% under what you budgeted for the prior year. All right, looking at all of your funds, this if you combine all of the different special revenue funds and your general fund, you had revenues of 127.7 million and expenditures of 170.3 million. I just want to remind everyone, the reason for those the higher expenditures is you had the bond referendum in prior years and you're spending all those funds down in the current year. All right, pension accounting. What is this? Since you guys participate in the state retirement plan, what we have to do every year is look, the state gives us a number of what your portion of the state pension liability is. And we have to record that and disclose it. The big takeaway from, again, we don't report any of this on your general fund, so it's not going to change how you operate day to day. The only way it's going to change how you operate day to day is this last point. You see the employer contribution rates increased from 13.56% to 14.56%, and they're going to continue to increase 1% annually until they max out at 18.56 in fiscal year 23. So what does that mean for you? That means all of your fringe benefit costs are going to keep going up year after year, and it's a state mandated percent that you have to pay. There's nothing you can do about it. So as you're going through your budgeting process, and Ms. Ross is already aware of this, you're just going to have to factor that in every year, that your benefit costs for all of your teachers, custodians, all that, are all going to continue to increase. We have the exact same thing. We have other post-employment benefits, OPEB. Essentially what this is retiree insurance. Since you participate in the state health plan, retirees can go to the state and get their health coverage through the state. So this plan is also underfunded and has a big liability that we have to record on your government-wide statements. So again, what's the takeaway from this one? It's the last point here. The employer contribution rates increased from 5.5% to 6.05%, and in fiscal year 20, they're increasing to 6.25%. So what does that mean? More costs that you guys are going to have to come up with and fund in your budget year after year. Other items we'd like to briefly mention, your total capital assets were $29,292 million at 6/30/19. This was an increase of $49.7 million from the prior year. And again, all this was entirely due to all of the ongoing construction projects, which I know you guys are all aware of. You also had $1.2 million in furniture, equipment, and vehicle additions. You had $4.2 million in depreciation expense. And again, you had construction commitments, approximately $7.1 million as of June 30th, 2019. Looking at your long-term debt, the balance at 6/30/19 was $264.9 million, which was a decrease of $6.6 million from the prior year. You can see the school district made $5.6 million in principal payments and paid $9.9 million in interest. You had another $1 million in compensated absences, and your total debt service payments for fiscal year 20 is going to be $15.8 million. All right, looking ahead at changes in accounting and auditing standards. The good news, don't see any significant changes in the auditing principles. However, there are two accounting principle changes upcoming, which I want to make sure you guys are aware of. The first one, fiduciary activities. This provides guidance on which activities should be recorded as fiduciary funds and which should be recorded in other funds. The school district is going to have to implement that for fiscal year 20. The biggest, essentially what this means, your pupil activity funds, all of your yearbook accounts and athletic accounts. They're currently accounted for as fiduciary funds. For fiscal year 20, they're going to be reported as a special revenue fund. The good news is, day to day, that's not going to change how anybody has to report anything, how they have to operate. It's just going to change how it's reported in the financial statements for next year. And again, for you guys, that's the biggest significant change upcoming. All right, looking at compliance, we did have to do a single audit for 2019. And again, a single audit is where we look at your federal funds. We go in and make sure you're complying with all of the different compliance requirements and spending the funds correctly. For 2019, we did look at your food service cluster. That's what that is. And the good news was there were no items or findings to report. Again, you should have a separate management letter. This is required communications to management and those charged with governance. And the good news there, we had no issues to report in the management letter. And we did discuss several oral recommendations with the CFO and superintendent. They were not significant enough that they needed to be in the order. Again, in summary, an unmodified opinion. Again, we talked about the change in the food service fund and the after-school daycare funds. And we would say you're in good financial condition as of June 30th, 2019. Any questions on that? You guys have. And if you want to say, again, thank you, Mr. Rawls, Mr. Crockett right there. I know it's not fun going through an audit, but we do appreciate how ready they were for us and how thorough they were to getting information to us.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to, next item is consideration of first and second reading of the 20 and 21 calendar proposal.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James, you'll remember back in November we shared 2 different calendars with you. I've provided you an update to that. The only change to that is the color coding on the bottom, so that you can see a little bit more clearly which is in service days and holidays. That's the only difference to that one that was provided to you in your packet. The calendar drafts since that time have been sent out to schools and all our facilities so employees could review and have input on their selection. And so the results of the calendar 1A, received 81% of the votes, I guess if you will, and calendar 1B received 19%. And so the administration would recommend approval of first and second reading for calendar 1A for the 2021 school year.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Roots, what's the major difference between 1A and 1B? The start date's very similar.
The start date is the same, the end dates are the same. There's some difference in February, for example, the 15th. On one of them is a holiday, on the other is a teacher in service, and there's a few other examples of that.
I make a motion to approve calendar 1A since it was chosen by the vast majority of employees.
We have a motion and a second. Second by Mr. Key. Any discussion? All right, being no discussion, all those in favor of the motion to pass, vote for first and second reading for calendar 1A, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next is consideration of administrative review of board policy KF, community use of school facilities. Dr. Jones.
Yes, sir. Must be we've had a good number of policies that we've gone through and tried to update over the past 2 years. Don't spend a lot of time doing that, and the use of the community use of facilities has been one of the policies that we've had lots of questioning on, and I would recommend that the administration review this policy in particular and report back to the board about the different portions of it, because there are a lot of moving pieces to it. We've heard about the timeline, and there's a piece about the cost to use different facilities. We've got some new facilities that the board will have to end up approving what's the rental rate on that, and then we're going to add some, hopefully very soon, we're going to add a crown jewel in spaces to be used. So my recommendation would be that the administration look at all of the policies dealing with the community using school facilities and come back with a report to the board, and then give you all a chance to add to, take away, give your opinion. Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
I make a motion that we task the administration with reviewing policy KF, community use of school facilities in its entirety, and also anything else that would align with that as well, and bring us back recommendations based on their review of said policies.
Have a motion, have a second. Second by Mr. Kidd. Any discussion?
So, Dr. James, the October 31st date though that's referenced in the policy, that goes back to when we would have to. Grass and plant fields and stuff
Yes,
like that, right, for
Yes,
the
ma'am.
fields, okay. So, there's probably, some of it's outdated.
But we further discussed the fact that the artificial fields would have to be inspected, and we'd have to have field-ins there, and things would have to be done. That, just because it's no longer a grass field doesn't mean that there's not upkeep of that facility. And right now, we've got, one of the stadiums have quite a few holes in it, something's gonna have to be done.
Well, in addition, we need to just as a sidebar, we have pieces like the account for maintaining those and what we want to do. And those. So there are a lot of pieces. We aren't without maintenance anywhere, but you are right, Mr. Brown. That October 31st date was to allow the grass to recover for springtime.
Okay. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of scheduling the finance workshop at 6 p.m. on March 12th, and a 2030 plan facilities workshop at 6 p.m. on March 26th, which is the Thursday before and the Thursday after our regular March meeting.
Mr. Bingham, we're trying desperately to put together a process where we can give the board information on our overall long-range plans and give it to you in chunks that are manageable. Not to say that we didn't enjoy confusing you all in our little traffic jam exercise last winter, but what we would like to do is start to break it down, and everything that we do centers around, or starts with the finance department. So we will begin to get a little bit of information about what's going to happen with the finances with the state. We'd like to start with the finance part of it, and then on the week after the board meeting, the 26th, start to talk about the long-term pay-as-you-go replacement of facilities. And then after that, at a later date, we want to schedule a time to sit and meet with the board and talk about the things that we gave you a goal last year about 20 to 1 kinds of things in the classroom for elementary, and what's our strategy for improving the academic piece of it. So at this point, we're ready for 2 of those workshops. And my recommendation is that we do them in the evening and only Thursday, so that we can do it in chunks and rather than just overwhelm Saturday.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the recommendation for 2 board workshops, one on March 12th at 6 o'clock for the 2030 plan, and one on March 26th at 6 o'clock for a financial workshop.
I think that's backwards.
Financial
The
workshop.
12th is finance and
Well,
the
it says
23rd.
right on here, it says financial workshop at 6 on March 26th.
It's supposed to be the other way, but it does say
Well,
that.
flip it then, and I'm making a motion that flip it. I'm not sure why we vote on it. I think just tell us we're coming.
I want to make sure we make it. If we're going to do that work, I want you to be.
All right, we have a motion, do I have a second? Now, second by Mr. Key, any discussion?
That's exactly what it
The
says.
one thing I would suggest is that we try to refrain from having anything else on that meeting other than this, because when we put other regular board business in the meeting, it gets sidetracked at the time, and we don't get to do the things we need to do for this workshop.
No, sir, we worked really hard at trying to separate these 2 things, and we can talk about finance and facilities.
Mr. Chair, if I might, and these are very worthy workshop, but we had, I just want to throw this in there, we had a workshop that we had talked about having in January to review the athletic policy. Say that at some point, I'll hope that we would get that on the agenda as well.
Yeah, I think that Dr. James wanted, instead of us having the January thing with the all day, he's trying to break it into pieces, so there'll be another one follow up after that.
Thank you.
Mr. Summers, in response to that, right now, we don't spend a lot of time pulling the board policy that corresponds with each part of that. So we can give you a notebook that just, here it is, here's the policy, here it is. And just kind of condense.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next is custodial committee's report to the board.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, we have with us some of our fine assistant principals in the district. You tasked us with looking at our custodial services and trying to determine whether or not we want to continue with the contracting of those services, or if we want to look at going back to having our own employees. We met, I think, 3 or 4 times, ultimately 4 times, I think. And so these fine folks have agreed to make a presentation to you with the recommendation of the committee.
Mr. Eisenhower actually took a lot of what I was going to say, so thank you. We did meet together. We have principals, assistant principals across the district that met. Mr. Eisenhower, Bill McPherson, Ron Arnold were all part of that committee. We do feel it is in the best interest of the district to continue services with Defender with some specific recommendations that we have come up with. Over the past couple of years, we have invested a lot into personnel in our building with Defender, and with these recommendations, we feel we can build a better partnership between Lexington and Defender. We've already put a lot of these recommendations in place and have seen a positive impact that it's already made. Ms. Lundy is going to come share with you some of those recommendations.
I'll let this on this side.
There you go.
All right, so with the committee meetings, we came up with some recommendations, and it's important for you guys to know that with these recommendations, we've already started to initiate these recommendations. So everything that we're going to review today in these 4 points, it's already started. There has already been at least one initiative started to address these. So the first one is improving communication and getting detailed expectations not only to the custodians but also to the schools. And the next slide I have some examples. Don't change it. I have some examples that I'll share with you of the initiatives that have started with these. Also, creating an inclusive atmosphere. We kind of got into this us versus them, and we don't have to go away from Defender to make them a part of our schools. And so that's a big initiative that we wanted to do, is to still make them a part of our schools, because if we appreciate them, if we're showing that appreciation, if they feel like they're a part of us, then they're going to work harder and want to be proud of the school that they're working in. For the third one, custodians will be recognized at the school level, the district level, and with the company Defender. Defender just did a Christmas party for all of the custodians in our district. They housed it at Casey Elementary, and that was at the recommendation of this committee that was together. We sat around and we said, hey, if you want people to work for you and you want them to do what you want them to do, and we want clean schools, you have to show appreciation. So they did the Christmas party. They gave items away, gift cards away. The custodians were having a great time. They had a meal that was catered by, I can't remember, a barbecue place, a local barbecue place. And then last, we want to have methods for increasing attendance accountability. We did explore several different recommendations, but there has already been something initiated where we have a sign in and sign out with the cameras available, and Mr. Arnold is actually double checking with the cameras and the sign and sign out. So these are some examples of the way that we've initiated some of these things. So the first one, what we found is that the custodians had their expectations, but we were not telling students and teachers what they could do to play our part in helping keep our schools clean. So in every classroom at Casey, and the committee members really like this, and we shared it with them, and they're implementing it in their schools. So if you see, they have the student piece to it. What can students do to help keep the classroom clean? What can teachers do to help keep the classrooms clean? And then we have the custodian expectations that Mr. Arnold and the vendor has set for custodians. The next one is a special events needs form. What we are finding is communication for special needs events. It was not being communicated appropriately. We thought as administrators we were getting the information correctly, but it was getting lost in the translation. So Mr. Arnold made a form so that we could be very specific in how we do that. Another one is just to show an example of appreciation. This is something that Mr. Arnold did for one of the custodians. And there are other types of appreciation that we're doing. We talked about the Christmas party, and we're starting at Casely monthly meetings. So we're going to meet with the night crew and the day crew because we had a lot of finger pointing between the two and a lot of miscommunication. So we're starting monthly meetings so that we can talk about what are the school's needs, what are the custodians' needs, and how are we helping each other meet the expectations of the cleanliness of the schools. And then just making sure that they're included in our faculty and staff celebrations. And that just helps them feel like that they are truly a part of an inclusive environment.
Since we're talking about Ron Arnold, I'm going to ask him to stand. Ron, if you don't mind, just to give everybody an idea who you are. This guy helps us with so many different things. He is literally a game changer. He does act as a liaison between the district and the vendor services. Part of my job and responsibilities is to oversee facilities. And anytime there's a need that I have, whether it be equipment, chemicals, or any other need, I can make a very quick phone call or text to him, and it is addressed very quickly. And as a committee, we decided that we cannot grow this professional relationship or improve these services without Mr. Arnold on board.
And so therefore, our recommendation from the committee is to continue the contract with their vendor services.
Any questions from the board? All right, thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, we need to have a motion on that.
Our contract is,
No, well, I don't think we need one. I mean, it's not made renewal unless we go the road route.
vote not to, it will automatically renew.
Okay.
Dr. James, I do want to say one thing. So when we go in and we see janitors in enjoying the athletics and festivities that are going on at the school instead of cleaning the facilities, we now hold this committee partially responsible for that too?
Well, in every school, there is an assistant principal that has responsibility for that. So if we've got folks who aren't doing what they need to know, our administrators need to know, yes ma'am. And Mr. Arnold, at the end of the day, if he says a defended person goes, they go. So
Or like sleeping in their cars on the night service?
if you find that, you let us know. If you don't have an administrator right there, you let us know and we'll deal with it. Because we've got a lot of schools that have included the custodial staff to be part of the faculty. And I mean, they're walking around, they've got on T-shirts, they're included in all the events. And I'm a little biased when I go to Joni's school because Leon and I were together years ago. And I mean, again, I'm biased, but he's the epitome of the kind of guy you want there. He takes so much pride. And that's the image that we want in every one of our schools. So if we've got somebody that doesn't share our philosophy, we want to help them find a place that shares theirs. So please let us know. That means y'all tighten up.
Go back All right, so who reports to who? Ryan Arnold, who? Go through the chain of command here.
Everything to deal with facilities comes under Mr. Einstein.
Okay.
Our contract is with Defender. 2, 3, how long, Don, did Mr. Arnold come on board to act as a liaison between?
Ron, you've been with us as in this role for 2.5 years?
Yes, sir.
And we asked this board for that position because we felt like we needed someone that would spend more time working toward getting our buildings cleaner. And I think everybody will tell you, and we didn't ask this committee to say anything nice about Ron Arnold, they wanted to.
So he's our employee, we pay
He
him.
is our employee.
Defender does not pay him.
Yeah, the way it works is I'm in charge of operations. The other person is in charge of the maintenance, and basically Ron Arnold falls under maintenance. So Ron is our liaison that works between the schools and Defender Services, and Defender Services has just as much respect for him as our administrators do. So he does a good job, and everybody respects the fact that he is dedicated and wants to get this thing right.
But he has hire and fire capabilities over Defender's employees?
No.
He can have them removed. He can't fire them from the company, but he can have them removed from our facility.
Mr. Eisenhower, who has the responsibility of picking up trash out on grounds? I've been told that Defender doesn't do that, but who does? If they
Ron,
don't?
I'm gonna let you address this. I know the answer.
Yes, they do. Defender is responsible for it.
And it's the day shift, right?
Yes.
And emptying trash containers that are located outside?
Yes, that is correct.
So the trash containers that are full this week should not be there next month?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Does he have a liaison with Defender that he works with?
Yeah, there are 2 supervisors that you work with basically, and then really the whole staff.
Currently, I'm working with 3 or 4. Their regional director, they've brought in a recruitment VP, and then the 2 managers that are on site all the time. They're on speed dial. So I communicate with them pretty much 24/7. If somebody reports anything to me from a school, it's addressed within 5 minutes. It's quick, and then I'll respond back to the school to let them know that it's been taken care of.
Ron has come up with forms, checklists. I mean, he has really, in my opinion, has made it very easy, or as easy as we can for custodial services to come in here, whether it's a Defender or somebody else.
How often do we like spot check the schools to see, how things are going?
How do you spot check the schools, Mr. Arnold?
I didn't hear the question, I'm
How
sorry.
often are you in each of the schools to know that, everything, the trash is being in, just to do like a walkthrough, I guess?
Me personally, I try to get in every school at least once a week. Does that happen every week? No. But I have tasked the 2 managers to make sure that they're in the schools. We have them working 4 nights a week now. Before, they didn't work in the evenings ever. And that's when a lot of the issues were. So now I have them working, they're alternating to where they're in the schools at night. And they have to report back to me which schools they were in, on which nights, and what their findings were. Who was responsible, did they coach, counsel, terminate for any issues? So, yeah, that's our biggest weakness, and we are working hard on it.
Also, in answer to that, Ms. Rucker, each principal was asked to designate an assistant principal over custodial services. So buildings ought to be spot checked every day. They're administrators in the building.
So the 2 managers you're talking about who do the spot checks, so they work for us, they work for them?
They're paid by Defender.
Okay.
But in my opinion, they work for me.
Got it. How many employees do we still have?
We have 8.
And they're all still located basically in one or maybe two schools?
All but one are at BC High School, and one is at Riverland. Now we have 3 Defender people working at BC High School.
Do you feel like we're in a better position than we were in last year at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
In the overall cleanliness of our facilities?
Yes, ma'am. Having the new facilities has helped us tremendously, obviously, but our cleaning has come a long way. This school year alone, Defender has terminated 45, 50 people for poor job performance. So we're not letting anything just fester. If they're either, they do the job or they leave. Right now, it's a tough market for finding that kind of help. Very tough. That's why they brought in a recruitment professional. And they're going Facebook ads and having job fairs and all kinds of stuff. So I think the general consensus throughout the district is we're miles ahead of where we were a year ago now. That's the feedback I get from most of the schools.
Last thing, thank y'all. I mean, I know it's extra duties y'all had to do for being on that committee, but an extra time, but I appreciate the assistant principal, all y'all for doing that and doing that report for us.
Next up is the update on the closing on Walterboro Street.
Well, since the board is not in here.
I'm right here.
Okay.
It's closed, we own it. Anything
That was
else?
a quick update.
There you go.
All right, so that leads us to item G, is consideration of possibly paving Walterboro Street and Eagle Drive around Fulmer Middle School.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, with the closing of Walterboro, we've been waiting for that to occur. We want to take a look at paving as much of that area around Fulmer as we can. Now, I will tell you, it's not just as easy as just saying we're going to pave it, because we have some storm drain issues. We've got some RCP, reinforced concrete pipe, that, in my opinion, has come loose. The joints have not been sealed properly. We've got some sinkholes basically between the old rec gym, I guess is what's been called through the years, and the ball field behind Fulmer. So we're going to need to put some money in to go in and address that. And I'm going to have probably a civil engineer to help us come up with a plan to put that in. Now, we have saved some money on contingency for Fulmer. I don't think it will be enough, given the fact that we're going to have to do some work on the storm drain system to try to make sure that we don't just pave over something that's going to sink again in a few years. So I just want to make sure that y'all know that we now own it, and that we would like to come up with a plan, and we will try to take what contingency we have and put that with some CPIF funds and try to come up with a good plan to fix everything around Fulmer with regard to the school and road.
Do you think that drain is closer to the rec or the football field?
You've got there's about 4 sinkholes, is there not, Bill?
Yes, they're primarily backed by the rec gym.
Yeah, and it's mostly going into storm drainage boxes that we have, which is a good thing. If it's on one end or the other, it makes it a little easier, but you can still address it, but we'll have to probably tear it, dig out from around it, build some collars, pour some collars around those joints to try to seal it. But it's going to take some effort, and right now, it's underground, so we can't exactly come up with what it is.
Have you had the lines videoed?
Cameras. Have you cambered those, Bill?
No, not yet.
But that will be one of the first things that we do.
Yeah, probably before you even hire somebody.
Yeah.
just get somebody to go out there and do the camera work to, let's see what we got. I'll tell you whether the joint's bad or not. Or whether it's the pipe's bad.
So with y'all's approval, we'd like to start working on a plan to address those issues.
So you want a motion for that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we make a motion to create a plan if you're gonna have to come back? Wouldn't we have to approve the plan after you create the plan? Why don't we just say, yeah, do the
We'll
plan?
put it out for bid and bring it back and you approve the bid. I didn't want to spend the money to do the plan without y'all knowing that we want to spend this and that it's going to take some contingency money and CPIF funds.
But we still will approve the bid before it goes out. I'll make a
Yes.
motion to make a plan.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think what he's saying is it's gonna cost money to develop
Make
a
the
plan.
plan.
So he's wanting approval of the board so that there's no issue with regard to him with the plan. Any questions?
When you say an eagle, that comes around behind the baseball field?
We won't be able to do all, we can't do all of
Okay,
the.
I'm just, you said eagle and,
It's basically a round
for
pole.
an eagle, I was trying to.
It's a round pole, part of that is legal.
Any further questions? All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of analog camera replacement district-wide.
Yes, sir, when we first started working on our security plan for the district, we went in and we focused on basically upgrading the cameras that were not working, putting in the colored digital cameras. We went ahead, you gave us permission and approval to go ahead and wire for changing out the other analog cameras as funds were available. And now that we're nearing the end of the bond referendum, we'd like to go back and change out all of the remaining analog cameras, and there's between 50 and 55, I think is what we've got estimated. So I'd like to award that contract to the people that we've been working with, and that's A3 Communications, in the amount of $50,285.57. $50,285.57.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation to replace the analog cameras district-wide to A3 Communications in the amount of $50,285.57.
A motion to a second. Second by Mr. King. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of replacing the security system at the Community Education Center.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to recommend that the board consider items I through N in one fell swoop.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve items I through N, awarding all the contracts as recommended and the amounts recommended by administration.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Key. So discussion, while we're in discussion, you want to tell us who's going to get it?
Looks like TSC for the security, and it looks like the hardware is all going to A3.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple questions I'd like to ask about these. It seems like we're spending probably about $80,000 to replace doors, that some of those doors aren't 10 or 15 years old. Are they because they're no longer safe? Do we want a new security on them? It's things that we can't, I mean, I went along with increasing millage because we've got this 30, 40-year plan, and I know that all these things have to be on a cycle of replacement. But if we've got doors that aren't lasting longer than 10 and 15 years, we've got other problems we need to look into rather than replacing them every 10 and 15 years.
So, go ahead.
So, I mean, that's an excellent question. And basically what it is, a lot of these are a storefront door with some less than desirable hardware. So when kids go up and start jerking on them and kind of abuse them, those pop open and stuff. So we're putting in center mullions with crash bars, a lot more durable hardware. Most of the doors are staying. We're swapping the hardware out. So
I realize we've got to do a better job of monitoring to avoid this being abused, but that's a lot of money. Keep turning around every few years.
And maybe you can answer this question. I assumed when I read it, it maybe had to do with the updates and the safety of the hardware used, because I know there's been a lot of innovations in school safety and the hardware we're using to lock schools down and stuff. Is that part of the reason we're replacing them, or is it just really they're getting worn out?
well, if you take the doors at BC Cafeteria, for example, I don't know how many students walk in and out of those doors, every day. I mean, it's a lot of usage that hits, and then you have some vandalism on stuff. It is a safer, what we're putting back is safer, it's more robust. It will handle the wear and tear a lot longer than the existing storefronts have. So, and it's a good value of reusing the existing doors, putting on some new hardware.
It's an ongoing process. It's just that we don't usually bring this stuff to the board because it's usually stuff that maintenance does. But since we're running all the contracts to you guys, we felt like we needed to bring it.
Any further questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is replacement of the fence around the special needs playground at the Common Elementary School.
Mr. Chair, we'd like to remove item O off of this agenda because we only received one bid and we thought that bid was high.
Okay. Item O is strictly from the agenda. Move to item P, consideration of additional construction contingency for Airport High School 700 wing project.
Mr. Chair, we have a few more things that we would like to do that were not included in the original design. For instance, now that we've built these covered in these breezeways and we put in these hallways, people can no longer get through the campus to get from parking that's on the other side of the airport facility over to the stadium. So what we've realized is that we need to create some steps that goes down by the 700 wing and down around and into that entrance over there by the basically the new field house. So that's one example of the kinds of things that we feel that we need to go back and do that we did not do. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to take an additional $35,000 out of that contingency that we had left forward and put toward this project to try to close this thing out.
Any motion?
Mr. Chair, is this amount right that's in here?
Yes, ma'am, 35,000.
I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for additional construction for the Airport High School 700 wing in the amount of $35,000.
Motion and a second. Second by Mr. King. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve the request for overnight night stay student travel.
Have a motion and a second. Second by Mr. King. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Administrative and divisional reports. Construction.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James, I have asked two of our principals tonight to share with you about our partnership with the University of South Carolina through our Professional Development Schools program. Professional Development Schools, or PDS schools as they're often referred to, is not a new thing for the University of South Carolina. In fact, Dr. James was the principal at Airport High School when they were one of the first, if not the first, to participate in that program. So we're excited to currently have two PBS schools in our district. That's Casey Elementary and Fuller Middle School. And so there are benefits to them as well as us, and I think it's important that you hear it. So,
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. Mr. Green and Dr. James, members of the board. First and foremost, happy School Board Appreciation Month. We appreciate the opportunity to share the good news of the Professional Development School Network with the University of South Carolina. Mr. Drozak and I have had a wonderful experience with this, and want to take an opportunity to personally thank Dr. James. He's been integral in getting us going back into this network and thus affording our school's opportunities, as well as schools throughout our district, a number of opportunities, being just across the river from the flagship university of our state. And so we want to make sure that you guys know. I left out the Go Gamecocks piece. Don't worry, that's the last slide.
That comes later.
That comes later. But nonetheless, we have had the opportunity to be a part of the, we'll call it PDS network, with the University. Casey and Fulmer are 2 of 23 schools in the Midlands area that have the opportunity to receive some very specific research-based practice engagement with the university, as well as one of the big key advantages in looking at this is the opportunity for teacher recruitment and retention in our district. That's obviously on the forefront of a lot of work that school districts around the state of South Carolina have been doing, and this is has been integral to our success, and we'll go through some examples of that. As you can see, we're making it on the map. The graphic on the right obviously talks about a lot of what is the mission of the university in this partnership. The whole research and innovation piece, very higher ed part of, we want to research, we want to come in and do those different things. So what we really want to focus on is what is the practitioner piece of this at the school level that's really been advantageous to us. And so Mr. Drozak and I will talk about the PD part of it, as well as the teacher recruitment retention, and how that helps our students. Ultimately, that's what we want to make sure that any investment that we make with time and resources obviously has a positive benefit on our students. And so we want to make sure that you guys know we're on the map with this. This is super exciting. Some of the key elements of PDS work is you have, and I'll go through this obviously in just a minute as well, your school applies. And so you go through an application process. The university determines whether they feel like your environment is a good opportunity to come in for them to send essentially a professor in residence in, to send clinical pre-service interns into, to have on-site coursework and things of that nature, to really meet the research interests of the university, thus supporting the goals of your school instructionally, culture, school culture, lots of different things that the work can focus on. At Fulmer, what we've really taken an opportunity to look at, our professor in residence, her dissertation research is on family engagement in middle schools. She's obviously very connected to the Schools to Watch network, and so she's done a lot of work with us on how do you engage middle school parents, and what does that look like going from elementary to middle school, and how do you really capture that piece of getting our families involved at the middle level. This year we have a number of induction teachers in our building. Kevin, I know Kevin and Dr. Keeper, their department has been outstanding in getting us and supporting us in that process. Our professor in residence, our liaison, has done a lot of work with just putting a lot of the informal pieces of teacher induction in place. And so really looking at what does the district offer in terms of their support network, which is quite robust, but really looking at what are some of the things that our new teachers need to know and understand Fulmer as a school community, and our liaison has been integral in that piece.
So our piece at Casey is to improve our differentiated instruction for our student needs. Our professor in residence, Dr. Compton Lilly, is truly one of the field's experts in literacy and improving literacy throughout students of different backgrounds. She's currently conducting research with some of our students in our English as second language classes to improve how we're instructing them and how we're improving their reading comprehension and how we're improving their reading fluency. And also doing this, we're able to provide needs-based professional development for our teachers. We just went through a process this very week where every afternoon our teachers signed up for a session where they were able to get a specific training that they wanted to be a part of. So it is needs-based, it's also choice. You know, in education, we talk all the time about autonomy and how that's very powerful in education. And when we are learning as learners, when we have the power of choice, it makes for better learning. So our teachers have that opportunity as well. And I really think that we can't say enough that having the University of South Carolina as a partner at Fulmer and at Casey, we are truly on the cutting edge of education research. This is not research that's 5 years old. This is not research that's 3 years old. This is research that's going on currently. And that really is an advantage for our two schools and Lexington too as a whole.
And so we want to talk about the advantages, and we want to make sure that you guys kind of understand the moving pieces and parts of all this and how we put it together in one large big picture. For us, much like what Mr. Drozak said, the professional development and what that looks like for our teachers How do our teachers have access to this? There's a number of different things that our liaison will come in and do as far as our student conferencing. What are our throwback schedules that we utilize to help our students analyze their SC Ready data? What are a number of different things that we're doing for our induction teachers, many of which she knows as she supervised them at the university. So she's a really good bridge from that piece of preparation into an actual helping them assimilate into a school environment. Just talk a little bit more about
Again, being on the cutting edge of research, not only in our example, Dr. Compton Early is an expert in literacy, she has access to other experts in other fields of education at the University of South Carolina and at other universities. This is an amazing opportunity for our administrative team, our instructional leadership team, our teachers to reach out to true experts in the field about how can we get better at what we're doing? How can we better serve the needs of the students of Casey, academically, in mathematics, and reading and writing, all of the areas we know as all students continue to grow.
Another, many of you may have seen in the news, recognized on social media, Carolina TIP, and that is the Carolina Teacher Induction Program. I have the honor of sitting on the Carolina TIP Advisory Board, and so I'm the only public school representative that sits on this advisory board. So of course I'm in the ear of all the people in charge about Lexington, and so that's a good opportunity for us as well. But as you well know, the issue across South Carolina is keeping teachers invested in the process of retaining them through the first 5 years of teaching. And many of that, as you guys know, as many of folks sitting in the audience, that first 3 to 5 years, you're looking at some pretty difficult transitions just from out of college and being an adult and so forth. And so Carolina TIP really invests in graduates of the university. Instead of saying, here's your diploma, come back and see us when you need a master's degree, they're really working to provide personalized coaching. One of the key elements of Carolina TIP is that it's complementary to the induction program that our district offers, and it's more specific to that individual person. Let's say, for example, you might need assistance with classroom management, you might want some more informational station rotations. It's really very personalized. Part of this advantage of Carolina TIP is that the university chooses to invest back into professional development schools. So districts who have representatives in this network, they want to make sure they expand. And so part of their expansion process to make this a statewide initiative was starting in Midlands districts. And so we had the opportunity to sit down and talk, include in this process Congaree, Wood, Casey, now that they've joined the network, Riverbank, us, and Springdale. So those schools, if they hire a USC graduate, that graduate has an opportunity to receive personalized coaching through the Carolina TIP process, and that is a massive investment that the university has made in our novice teachers.
And again, recruitment. We have currently, through our 2 different courses that are being offered through USC and Casey, access to 45 students from the University of South Carolina who are potential teachers. These are students that have access to our facilities, our teachers, our administration, our school district, and all of the things we have to offer. As a proud alumnus of the University of South Carolina's College of Education, I'm here to tell you that's given us access to 45 of the best potential teachers in the state. So that is an opportunity not only for Casey, but for all of our elementary schools. If I don't happen to have a second grade opening, I now know second grade candidates that I can speak to directly to my fellow principals about opportunities. And that's truly a powerful thing. We can provide all of the Lexington too with access to these teachers, and that's a great thing. Megan was speaking about the Carolina TIP program. We have 3 teachers at our school currently that are part of that program now as induction teachers, and it's really an add-on to an already fantastic induction program we have in Lexington too that's going to help retain teachers. We know that's difficult. We all know that research, we've all seen it, and to help provide them with individualized coaching is another recruitment tool for our school and our school district.
And that's been really something that's been, I hired 3 interns right off the bat last year. I knew what I was getting. I knew they had been in our building, they'd been a part of our culture. I knew what they needed. I knew where I could best place them. I knew what supports I needed to put in place to make them the absolute best that they could possibly be. And the only one I didn't hire moved to Charleston. And so if she'd been driving distance, I probably will have included her in there as well. We currently have 2 undergraduate classes taught on site this semester. We had 2 last semester and 2 this semester. If you take the opportunity to come to our media center, we actually, Mr. Eisenhower and Kuru Architects and so forth, built as a part of our media center a professional development classroom that all of our faculty has access to, but we actually have a designated space for undergraduate coursework. We have 58 middle level candidates and special ed candidates on our campus this semester through on-site coursework.
They all have to do 10 hours of service to, aside from their coursework. So I have access to 500 volunteer hours from USC students for free. So that's obviously a big thing. In addition to that, imagine being able to learn about classroom management in an actual middle school as opposed to sitting in a classroom and understanding it as this pie in the sky theory. You really have we're best to learn classroom management than a good old fashioned middle school. It ain't much better than that. But the same thing with student interns. I have 9 interns throughout the course of the year, 5 middle level, 2 special ed, and 1 special ed, art, and 2 secondary math. And so for me, it's a matter of, and much like what Mr. Dryzak said, if I can't place interns, I'm going to give my colleagues a call and say, I've got a fantastic intern that wants to stay in the district because they feel comfortable. They know our community, they know our environment, and things of that nature. Some financial aspects of this that is of advantage. The university kicks back to us $1,000 to do our on-site research. So for example, our big project has been student-led conferencing. So the university purchased every single material. I rotated teachers in throughout the day to facilitate those student-led conferences. They paid for all the subs for that process. So just things that you don't necessarily, that are ideas you want to take down off the shelf and you need some additional support with that financially, that's been a key thing. For every intern, the banking of tuition reduction credits. We also know that teachers come to us with an inordinate amount of student loans, and that is obviously something that is very much looming over the head of most teachers in the industry. For every intern that we host in our building, we get a tuition reduction credit. And what that means is I have 9 interns, I get 9 credits that any teacher in my building can use to take a graduate course for recertification or support towards their master's level coursework. Currently, I have 4 teachers enrolled this semester at the university taking coursework for a very deeply discounted price. So there's so many advantages that we get as a school in terms of being able to recruit, being able to do different things, but also the university kicks back to us as opportunities for our faculty to make that partnership a very cohesive and positive one. What questions can we answer for you guys? Is there anything? Aside from go Gamecocks, right?
Is there a way to expand it to other schools beyond yours?
I will say this, I have had a number of conversations with my colleagues in the district because I've gotten the word out there. I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with this. What the network requires you to do is to fill out an application. So it's an application process. And in that process, you're listing what are your key school goals. So for us, it was family engagement, differentiated instruction, math, bridging the gap, with African American learners. And so what they do is they go through their network of people and decide, can we financially support schools and are their interests aligned with a number of our faculty's interests? So it really is, I will say this, when you look at, there's a database and there's a report that the Center for Educational Partnerships in the College of Ed publishes, and there's literally something going on in every single school in our district. And so that's an open door for that to potentially be a possibility.
And when you get into the network, you have access to the other schools in the network, schools outside of our school district that USC has also worked with. So if they've worked with another school doing another project that we're looking to take on, now I'm directly connected not only with faculty at USC, but the faculty of that school. I know Dreer High School is another area high school that's been heavily involved in this, that we can now reach out to and say, hey, tell us about the pitfalls of this project. Tell us about things you didn't see coming. How can we avoid this?
How long, you're talking about other schools, but how long is this project, development project, what's the duration?
Every 3 years you reapply.
Oh, you reapply, okay.
Yes, sir. So this is Fulmer's 3rd year.
Okay.
So we will reapply at the end of this
You may have
school
covered
year.
that, but you were covering a lot of it.
You got it. I'm on speed when I say talking about this. It's super
very
exciting.
good, by the way.
But every 3 years you reapply. And so, for example, what might have been an area of focus 3 years ago when we initially applied, there may be something different that we really want to focus on in the coming year. And you got flexibility within those 3 years to say, this is kind of an anomaly of a year with a larger percentage of induction teachers. So I need to kind of shift a layer of this to be able to support that piece of what we're doing as well. So it's adaptable. There's nothing that's locked in, but every 3 years you go through and you reapply.
And this is Casey's first year.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, next up is monthly financial reports.
Yes, sir. You will see in your books the monthly revenue summary as of December 31st, 2019. Were no tax revenues. We did receive tax revenues, but I didn't get the numbers and the detail in time to get in the report. We received over $6 million from the December collections. So we have an additional $6 million over the $3.9 million in revenue that is presented here.
Say that again.
You see the top part where there's no property taxes represented here as having been received in December?
Yes.
I knew the number, I didn't have the breakdown of how it was going to look. We received a little over $6 million in December, so when you look at that number at the bottom, the total revenues for the month of $3.9 million, add a little over $6 million to that number. So we were closer to $10 million in revenues for the month of December.
So 36.84% is not an accurate number?
Correct.
That would still be a couple million under where we were last year, that same.
It was. If you remember, the tax laws were changing about the time that the property tax payments, a lot of people paid 2 property tax payments in December of 18, because that was when the laws were changing, so that they could take advantage of the standard deduction being lower in that year. That was, you remember, that's when everything changed. So a lot of people that paid their taxes in January moved and paid them in December in efforts to be able to possibly deduct that property tax payment. Now that the standard deduction is much higher, it's harder to meet that threshold and be able to deduct that payment. So I think a lot of individuals pay double taxes in the calendar year of 2018 in efforts to be able to deduct those. I expect our January collections that we will receive in February to be higher than what we realized at the same time last year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But by the same token, it still does appear that our revenue is down for this year, this time, and our expenditures on the next page are up over where they were.
I think we're gonna catch up when we get to the
So
end
you
of
need a flush
February.
out.
I think it's just a timing thing. I'm not alarmed. And our expenditures would be up because of the salary increases. That would be the justification for expenditures being higher.
As a percentage?
Well, we had, there again, I think it's all timing. But yes, I still think that with the percentage, it still is, with the salaries and everything going up that they did, I still think that you're going to see a percentage increase.
So that would be the biggest thing is when you're seeing percentage increase. I mean, it's about 2% more expenditure. And then, of course, with 36.42, that was like 5 or 6%.
Right. There again,
But now the revenue, I understand we got more revenue. It still doesn't look like it's going to hit 42%. It's going to probably only be about 40 and 41. And then expenditures are about 2% over.
in December of 2018, we received about $10 million in taxes. There again, that's why I think that you're going to see by the end of February.
I understand that I understand. I'm just, even though the salaries are increased for expenditure side for this year, as a percentage of the total budget, it wouldn't explain 2% difference in 6 months as a percentage of the budget.
I understand. There again, it could be a timing situation. I'll be happy to look into it and get back with you and provide.
Yeah, just make sure there's not some anomaly going on there, because these things, that's the reason they're there, is they're pretty doggone accurate. If you look month to month, it almost follows percentage-wise dead on the money every time. So that was the one thing I noticed, is both percentages were off, and that's not normal.
Right, and it
And I
could be-
understand the revenue side now, but the expenditure side is a little more puzzling.
I'll be happy to look into it and I'll get back with you on the details. It could be a timing where we may have had 6 payments in one last year and we've only had 5 payments in that this year, but I'll be happy to look into it a little bit more, give you some more information.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bingham, I just want to point out the English major caught it first.
You said it first. I caught it, I'm reading it out. Believe me, money is the one thing I do look at.
The next sheet in your packet is the pupil activity fund balances for each school. Any questions on that? The next report would be your capital project commitments as of December 31st.
Mr. Bingham, looking at that, to go back to the auditor, talking about our general fund balance, I want to remind the board that the $3 million that we put into CPI fund balance, technically that is fund balance. That's a supermajority vote away from going to wherever the board wants to. So the reality is, if you looked at our actual total fund balance, it would be over the recommended 16%. And the total for this year is about 4.2 million. So we outperformed the budget. One point whatever goes, 1.1 goes to the general fund. 3 million goes to the CPI fund balance. So we're within that 16%.
Okay, that look for the financial report.
That's
All
the
right,
next.
so without objection, the monthly financial reports will stand approved. Then we go to the budget calendar.
This is very similar than it has been in years past. We have the work session documented for March the 12th on here. By that time, we should know the numbers from House Ways and Means. They will have presented their budget. We'll be able to give you some general ideas on what we're looking at revenue-wise, at least based on the House's version. We should have some ideas on where we believe the Senate will be going by that time, with our first reading being at the May board meeting.
Motion to approve the recommended calendar for the budget.
Motion of a second. Second by Mr. King. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you. Let's move to student services administration construction update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you have in your packet the construction update for January that Mr. Kugler typically heads up for us. So he would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
No problem.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. The issues about the HVAC and dampers at airport, are those on new HVACs or existing?
No, ma'am, those are all existing ones.
I thought they were doing repair of it. It seems like the project with the 700 wing is going slow. Any reason for that?
No, ma'am, we've added a lot of work to it. They're essentially through. We have our above ceiling inspection Tuesday, and right now, what you see over there is roofing work going on right now.
At the the BuzzFeed and Innovation Center, is there a problem with that detention pond, or is it just slow work?
It's, the work's essentially done, it's just trying to get the Lexington County inspector out to file the NOT notice of termination.
That's been a monumental task because I think they've lost some people and it's been very difficult.
We're having an issue on several schools.
So the inspection's a problem. At Christmas, at Wood Elementary on the sound system, the sound system was there, which was nice, but they still had to bring in cars because they had to bring in the projector. Has the projector been installed?
It was, we had it installed over Christmas break, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to executive session.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter a closed session for the following: consideration of personnel appointments and resignations, discussion of property matters, discussion of contractual matters, consideration of request for student readmission, consideration of request for early student admission.
The train guys will get about 11 tomorrow.